Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Man Alone solo role-playing YouTube channel. I'm Man Alone, and today we're going to be taking a look at Wanderer, or The Wanderer, a solo supplement for Orbital Blues. It is published by Soul Muppet, a great publishing company, puts out some awesome games, and that is the same publisher who published the core game. What is interesting about The Wanderer? Well, it is a card-based mechanic, and it appears on the surface to have a lot of the same character creation, uses the same stats, same checks, a few modifications, but for the most part, you're going to be using the same mechanics, and it has a little bit of a different play cycle. But what was most intriguing to me is that at the end, it not only is the single card draws that are mechanically relevant, it is the hand that you compile over the course of the game, which had me very excited. And I have played through it, and I think there is some interesting ideas here. I wish that the card draw or the card poker hand mechanic was kind of explored a little bit more, but nonetheless, in terms of this mechanic of using, there's like it's an axis of card playing card led solo games that I don't think is explored. That's kind of hanging out there of, hey, you keep pulling these cards. Are you not putting together like sort of a 5-card draw hand? And can we use that? And can that be mechanically significant? So I will talk about this game. I will talk about what it does, my impressions of it, and then I'll also talk about some speculation, some ideas of what we could do to just push that concept a little bit farther. I recommend, of course, if you're going to use any playing cards, you need to use, tiny ones, because that will assure that you have lots of playing area space. These are pretty expensive for ants. Wait, that's not the right thing. The only drawback about tiny cards is they're a little bit hard to shuffle, so I had to do like the wash shuffle. But I'll start with just a brief overview of how Orbital Blues is played, since it is the same sort of system. I'll gloss over a few parts that I don't think are going to come into play, such as like ship creation and space combat and stuff. But Orbital Blues is a space western RPG that is a retro-futurist imagination or sort of a reimagination that the aesthetic of the 1950s, the sort of roadside diner, Sunday afternoon malt shop, blue plate special, honey, I'm home, the factory was hell today. I've just got just the thing for that. Heavy cars, no airbags, casual amphetamine. And it takes that and projects it forward into a future place in which interstellar travel is possible. All of the technology has been pushed forward, except we're still seeing sort of the same. This you're still seeing this. That's still the look of it. So it really is. I think the setting is important in their larger critique of capital. And the system is quite taut. It, I think, works well. It has 3 stats primarily, which are muscle, grit, and savvy. To build your stats or your character, you're just going to assign to each of those stats either +2, +1, or 0. Each of the stats gets one of those numbers, one thing that a person's very good at, another that they're good at, and another that they're competent enough at. And highest the stat can go is +3. The lowest rating it can be at is 0, although there can be mechanical moments where the GM or storyteller reduces it below 0 should the chips be that down. And that turn of phrase was not unintentional, because it does have this sort of rogue, maverick, hotshot space, Han Solo-esque feel to it, of like flying by the seat of your pants and deals going bad and double crosses. And that's really the whole adventure of the game, is that you are part of a crew. If you're playing in group play, you're part of a crew that's just trying to make a living. And there's an interesting allegory, I guess it's not even subtle, of just kind of seeing how this gig economy, so to speak, is the sort of thing that could look exciting, but is, whether you are sort of going through a space debris field in a certain amount of parsecs, or you're delivering, DoorDash, it's still a gig. And so your travelers or outlaws are choosing from a variety of different legal and illegal gigs to either make some money or pay off debt. And it usually is debt. Money is a sort of temporary stat in this game, in that you can build up some credit, but it resets every arc. And if you want to save between the story arcs, you have to actually deposit it, and you have to it's quite rare for that to happen. You get paid a salary or a payment, a bounty at the end of each of these arcs, which is the main chronological separation for this. And if you have debt or you have surplus, you have some different options of how to advance your players, advance your crew, advance your ship. Your ship also has a pretty basic set of stats: body, systems, mobility. You also get to choose one ranged, one melee weapon, one piece of equipment, one memento, and I think your equipment that you can hold is 2 things in your hands, 2 things on your belt, 2 things in your pockets. There's also a cool mechanic where you have certain pieces of technology that you can integrate into your ship. So you could sort of like install it into the ship to get benefits from it without necessarily having to carry it. And the game is narrative cinematic based. It's a 2d6 resolution system for the most part. So you'll do 2d6 plus whatever stat is relevant. And the stats, muscle, grit, and savvy, they're like muscle is strength. Grit was something like constitution, willpower. And savvy is what would we call it? Like the slop column, but it kind of makes sense. It's like it's a cinematic game, and so you could think of it as like the ability to make cinematic moments, right? So to say just the right thing, have the best rejoinder, but also it measures agility and ranged attacks. So it's like it's sort of like style points. It's sort of charm or charisma. But it's also agility, speed, etc. And the weapons are mainly differentiated by the tags. There are keywords that go with them. For instance, you have like a heavy pistol, which power-wise is no different than anything else, but the heavy pistol has the 2 keywords of armor piercing and loud. And so that's sometimes it'll have 2 traits. One of them is an advantage and one is a drawback. So that's a good example of it. It's armor piercing, which means no matter what, your target number to succeed at an attack is going to be 2d6 plus, in this case, because it's a pistol, it'll be 2d6 plus savvy, greater than or equal to 8. 8 is usually the target number in this game. And armor piercing means no matter what, no matter how much armor they have on, no matter what their cover is, it's always 8. Which there are certain things like your distance from the target, cover, just the circumstances, is light in your eyes, etc. All of these things can sort of increase or decrease your chances, which is the system of advantage and disadvantage in this game that I would like to demonstrate. And I would like to demonstrate them by showing you the newest shipment from the sponsor, Dice Nest. Yeah, so basically, like I said, the 2d6 is the resolution in this game, right? And so uh, that's generally it. It'll usually be 2d6 plus stat, okay? Oh, this one actually dropped. All right, so say that you wanted to, do a backflip and kick somebody in the head, and so you're going to use savvy, and your savvy is +2. You would do 2d6, and so you got a 5, and what is it? That's a 6. So you got 11 +2, 13, greater than 8, done. Okay. However, sometimes sometimes you're going to roll an observation check, which is straight up, no stat added. That's just if you see something and that's a 6, 6 is less than 8, you were not able to see it. And then sometimes you can have the upper hand, which means that you'll roll 3d6, and this is a 1. You'll actually remove the 1. 6 plus 4, 10, greater than or equal to 8, succeed. And then, of course, sometimes you are against the wall, I think it is disadvantage, 3d6, and you remove the highest one, so that's a 5 and a 1, a 6, no dice, so to speak. Now, in combat, you are going to increase that by 1, and it's 1 die. And it sounds a little bit confusing, but the reason for that is when you roll in combat, you're going to take, wow, that's a great roll. You're going to take whatever 2 dice you want to try to succeed at the check, which is usually over 8. If they're armored, it's 9. There's a couple different things. And for this one, I would succeed with the 6 and the 5 is 11, right? That's over 8. And then remaining, I have a 6. That's my damage, okay? And I was a little confused on this because I was like, do we have to have different colored dice? Do we have to roll them separately? Nope. You can choose. It's a little bit of strategy in it, in fact. Like right here, wow, I would love for this 6 to be the damage, but I need the 6 to exceed the 8. And here, if I just pulled the 1 here, then I'd only have 7, so I have to use 6 plus 3, and my damage is 1, okay? Now, if you roll with upper hand, you have to roll 4 dice, right? And here we have 6, 2, 1, 3. This is a good example because I'm going to use the 6 and the 2, right? But we would actually, because we had the upper hand, we would drop this 1, and so the 3 would be the damage. And in the same way, if we had against the wall, I hope that's right, we roll. We remove the highest roll, which is 6, and I have no way to make an 8, so I fail that roll, okay? One of the main mechanics of the game is the blues, okay? So you have these, rather than a stat, it's really a meter, so to speak, and blues is any, at the beginning of the game, you're going to list your troubles. So troubles can be these deeply seated traumas you have. It could be a literal trouble, like there's a warrant out for you, you owe a big debt, you forged an identity or something that is like either a secret or a secret for some people or something you just don't want to talk about because it hurts. So you start the game with 1 trouble, and throughout the game, if you sort of encounter those troubles, you have to do a blues check. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what happens in the next 3 minutes of the video is me completely struggling to explain blues and troubles and stuff like that. So to the end of not confusing you more than I help, I'm just going to butt in here to explain this process, and then when I'm done, I'll send you back to Doofus in the past to finish things up. All right, so basically the book says whenever a hard moment happens, whenever something terribly sad or just terrible happens, extreme fear, disgust, you're appalled, you're crushed, saddened, devastated, anytime that happens, that calls for a blues check. And you sometimes the GM could just be like, yeah, you get a blues, but assuming we're playing solo, right? So it's like 2d6 plus grit, okay? If you get 8 or more, you're shook up. You're all shook up. Yes, I know. You gain 1 blues. And you'll be like, wait, I succeeded. Why do I get a blues? Yes, I know a blues sounds bad, and it's not good to be blue, but you'll see mechanically to get more blues will definitely shake things up. Okay, so 8 or more, gain 1 blues. 7 or less, you get nothing. But that's one way to get blues. The other way is in the book when you get when you're making your character and you choose troubles, it will like list out these different things. So this one's party animal. You know how to live. Let no one else tell you anything else. And it says answer 2 questions during character creation. And these are just questions that will help you define yourself better. In solo play, you actually skip those. You don't read those because you could use them later to fill things in. And you also don't want to circumscribe your character by predetermining something and then having to like go against it. And so these are some questions to think about. And then it says you gain 1 blues when you enjoy yourself more than you probably should. You do a very stupid thing in a very serious situation, or you cover up your true feelings with debauchery. All right. So the idea here is you should see start seeing like a flow chart forming. Okay. Hard moment happens, blues check. You get 8 or more on that, you get a blues. Also, you gain blues when these things that are specific to your troubles happen. So your blues are going to build up. And when they reach 8 or 8 plus, like you might have several in a row or something like that, that you happen to have more than 8. Once per arc, you can declare troubles brewing, and it refers to one of your troubles. You are confronting your trouble in some way. So a couple things. Number 1, remember this game is narrative cinematic. And so this is going to be where like the spotlight goes on your character, and it could be something tangible. So like suppose that your trouble is that you stole a painting. Well, maybe whoever's like painting that has suddenly found you. Oh, I knew I'd find you here or whatever, right? That's a very direct confrontation. But something like party animal, maybe a very good friend is like, you know what? You ruined my house so that you could have a good time. I hope you had a great time, you know? And it's like directly confronting you. Or it could be totally internally. One of these that I wasn't able to do is a little close to home, devil in the bottle. This is, you're addicted to alcohol. And so if you go cold turkey for more than a day or two, you gain a blues. Okay. And so once per arc, when you declare that trouble is brewing, you're going to confront this trouble, and you may spend blues points instead of heart to exert yourself. Right now, so remember, exerting yourself means that you're rolling your 2d6 checks, and say you're like, say this was a 1, and you're like, I'm gonna re-roll it. You can spend 1 heart to re-roll it. Oh, nice roll. Get something better. That's a 5, by the way. Now, every time you do that, you spend HP, except when you're in troubles brewing. Because when troubles brewing, you're confronting this problem. Think of it as like you're in turbo mode. Okay, you're like, your performance level is off the charts. And so during this time, a couple of things. Number 1, you can use blues instead of heart for exertion, which has, that's a much better exchange than dealing away your HP. And you have all these blues stored up, and it's sort of mechanically supposed to mirror you, like you can't take it anymore. And so all that pent up emotion and feeling and energy, you're just doing it, right? You're like, I can't take it anymore. And so you can spend those blues freely to get really great dice rolls. You also take half damage from all attacks. You spend the blues as you go until this like sort of scene of yours is over. You achieve what you want to achieve, or at least attempt it. The scene ends. You wipe your blues back to 0, and then you have an option. You can gain a new trouble, which might also push you to a new gambit. We'll talk about that in a second. Gambit, remember, is talent. You fully heal all your hearts. You raise a stat by +1. Max is +3. Okay. And remember, you start the game with 1 trouble and 1 gambit. For every 2 troubles you carry, you gain another gambit or talent. But also now you've got 2 troubles. So you have 2 lists of things that can spark a blues check that are giving you blues. All right. But at the same time, as these troubles accumulate, you become more and more like reckless, out of control, right? When you are in combat and your HP, your heart, reaches 0, you roll a single d6, and if the result is less than or equal to your number of troubles, you die. So think about that. You're like, wow, I've got more troubles, which means I have more things I can collect blues points for, which means more gambits that I can have, which means better stats. But guess what? If your heart goes to 0, you roll. And right here, I rolled a 6. That's great. If I only had 1 trouble, I'm way above it. If I have 5 troubles, this is the only roll that I would have lived with. If I have 7 troubles, I don't even roll. I'm just dead, right? And so as you accumulate more of these, you're closer to death. Okay. But if you don't, if you have 2 troubles and you roll a 4, you live, but you're knocking on heaven's door, and you're incapacitated for, I think, 2d6 hours, and you gain a new trouble. So slowly, it becomes harder and harder for you to cheat death. Okay, but you also gain some new things. Now, remember, this should be kind of familiar to the Heron's path in Alan Barr's Shadow of Dying Sun, of like, you are getting stronger, but you're also getting dire or dying more likely. All right. Now, failing an ordinary stat, observation, attack roll, that doesn't create blues or troubles by itself. The only 2 channels, blues checks and trouble triggers, feed the blues meters. Blues and troubles do different jobs, I think. Blues is a temporary stress meter that fuels exertion and unlocks the once per arc, which is like a story segment, power-up scene. The troubles are permanent narrative baggage. They hand you blues. They raise the odds of dying, though. And slowly they buy you gambits. That's kind of why they're a gambit. A blues check success gives you blues. I think that's the thing that's going to be confusing, because you're like, well, I should get this if I fail. And to be honest, I might have reversed it, but I get what they were doing. It's like, the inversion of that is the roll measures the success of the blues. Did the blues stick on you? Yes, it successfully attached itself. You never fail into troubles. You choose to take a new trouble after trouble's brewing, or you receive one at the brink of death, or the GM assigns one for dramatic reasons if something wild happens. So you never fail into that. It's a process, all right? Now, this feels a little circular, and it was difficult for me to explain, and even now where I prepped myself, because the concepts are a little bit nebulous, right? And for me, troubles and blues felt the same, and especially when the words you're using to describe each of them, like flaws, right? Troubles brewing, blues accumulate, you trade blues for healing, but then you're also closer to death. This is all about raising stakes at a price. All right. And that's why this game is, and we're going to talk about this because there's a very good voicemail that somebody left me about why do you like it when a game has its own solo rules? Well, I like it because when a game makes its own solo rules, not always, but sometimes, it hums. It's like the mechanics mirror the setting, the plot, the idea. And this is an example of that. All right, we'll go back to the other thing now. So anyways, I don't mean to nitpick. It's just something that I thought of that occurred to me. So yeah, and I won't go too far into the other stuff in terms of ship combat and stuff, but suffice to say, there's a piece of it where you're basically going to be taking these jobs around the galaxy, traveling around. You can upgrade your ship, you can upgrade your character, you can use money, and I think it's got a nice overall loop to it. I think it's interesting. It's certainly different, which is a lot of Soul Muppet. They do a lot of things that bring new things to the hobby. They're not afraid to try different things, and yet somehow they keep it simple. They keep it tight in terms of the loop, and it's great. I think this is a very cool system, and a lot of good stuff in this book as well. I didn't get too far into the sample missions or settings or stuff, but just another note on the design of this book. It's give the designer a raise, because it's really incredible, and it's so, all of it is so coherent, for it just like beams out the implied setting and everything like that. So awesome job. Okay. All right. So where does that leave us for the solo game, The Wanderer? So when I first started playing The Wanderer, I was not realizing the whole potential of what this was. And it shows that the danger of sort of making assumptions, even if the assumptions are about a game that you think is a journaling game, because that is what I thought this was. And it is that, but it's more than that. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So essentially in Wanderer, you have all the pieces of the core game: stat checks, blues checks, observation checks, healing checks, and it gives instructions for attacks, and you're compiling this poker hand. And when you each sort of, there are 4 phases of play in the game, and I'll explain what those are. But the basic mechanic of the game is you draw a card, you put it here. Oops, that's right out of the camera's view. The value of the card is only important in terms of the suit, as well as looking it up in the Oracle. What I mean by that is, so this is a Queen of Clubs. So I'll go to phase 1. I'm on phase 1, and I go to Clubs, and I go to Queen. And here it tells me what the scenario is. An infamous bounty hunter tracked your crew across 5 planets and 2 systems. Okay. Then I will roll a stat check using whatever that suit. This one is represented by savvy. Okay. And so my savvy is +2. And so that would mean that I would roll 2d6 +2, and just, straight up target number. That's a 6 +2, 8. So I did meet the target number of 8. So that means I had a success. And based on whether you have a success or failure, you go to one of 2 interpretations of whatever this prompt is, or ask you questions about it. Now, you are still going to need to have one trouble, like in the core game. But the difference here is they don't want you to answer the questions for the troubles. In the core game, in addition to having these troubles and the circumstances of how you gain blues from them, you also have these 2 questions that you answer to sort of fill in the character in your head, like fill them out of who they are, what kind of person they are. I think the reason you don't do that for this is because you don't want to, I suppose the word would be, circumscribe the character, meaning you don't want to put a box around them and then suddenly they have a history that is sort of rewritten by the prompts in here. They want it more open-ended. So it's fine for you to be reluctant vagabond, struggling artist, etc. You also need a gambit, but most of the gambits in that do not work. And so there's a list of solo gambits. For instance, White Knuckle. Once per phase, roll 1 grit check with the upper hand, and then it changes in phase 3, and we'll talk about that. But the trouble is important to know, because a lot of how we answer these prompts is through the filter or through the prism of that trouble, right? So I guess we can go back to the Queen of Clubs. An infamous bounty hunter tracked your crew across 5 planets and 2 systems. And so my success is, when did you realize you were being followed? If one of my troubles was that I was paranoid or something, maybe that would help me to create a narrative in which I kept telling my crewmates that we were being followed, and nobody believed me because I was very classically paranoid. I was very often paranoid about things. Or if I was somebody, one of them involves like gambling, and maybe this means that this bounty hunter that's tracking us is for my gambling debt, and I'm not telling my crew that, and so I'm just trying to get them away, and it's closing in on me. But the trouble should always be like in your face, because that's going to propel the plot forward. What are the phases? The 4 phases of play, I actually think, are an excellent construction of a story, a solo game, etc. With a reservation that I'll talk about. So phase 1 is what you lost, and this is your character's pain, their tender parts, their misery, their trauma, their history, the way that behind the easy smile, the great hurt from that memory of that thing that you can never take back, no matter how much you wish, or you can actually, that one would probably be better for phase 2, because phase 1 is what you lost, and that's sort of things that happen to you. Phase 2 is what you took, and so this one is to say, yes, you had a lot of bad things happen to you, but you also weren't a saint in this. You also did things that just because you were in pain or you were acting out of need or whatever, that didn't make it right. So you're going to establish that in phase 2. Then in phase 3, it's what comes to roost. All right. And so you are then putting together the poker hands that you discarded in phases 1 and 2, because you're making this hand, but you're also having discards whenever you fail a check on a card, or you can have a success but not want to add that card. So you'll have these troubles decks, and you'll use those to put together card hands. And what's come home to roost is like, okay, so based on what you lost, what you took, or what you endured, what you did wrong, what's gonna like, what are the consequences? The consequences are here. They're showing up. So what does that look like? And you're going to use those decks of discarded cards to formulate them into challenges. And then in phase 4, that's the denouement, the end of the story. Phases 1 and 2 are in the past. Phase 3 comes back to bite you in the present, and phase 4 is how it all ends. And you use your final card hand to determine the final prompt. And if you look, these are the trouble hands, which is like phase 3, the challenges. And then you have, this is for your phase 4. This will tell you if you put together, it's supposed to be your best hand. So if you put together a full house, and I won't ruin it, those are all the ways that it can end. So my only reservation about this, this is certainly me. I imagine that some people enjoy this. There are certain circumstances that I enjoy this, but I do sometimes struggle with games that are designed around your character's death. There are several solo games like this, and including extensions of core games. For instance, Candlelight is attached to the trophy system, and Lost Among Starlit Wreckage is not connected to any system, but I must say it feels very Lancer adjacent. But either way, these are both very clever games, and even though they're a little bit too journally for my preferences and stuff like that, they bring some interesting things to the table. So it's not at all a critique of that. It's more or less like I wonder why especially, it seems just like, especially in people who don't normally make solo games, there is a jump to a conclusion that, like, well, the best way to create an experience for the solo player is to talk about their death. And not the player, right? The player character. No, they're not saying that we should die, obviously. And I am curious about that, like why that is seen as a good option. Now, you could take something like Shadow of Dying Sun by Alan Barr, and that is that way as well. But as you get closer to death and proceed along the heron's path, you become super powerful. And in a way, that does happen in The Wanderer. Um, it happens in the core game as you gather your as your troubles increase, you get more gambits, your stats increase, and so you do become more powerful. But the chances that you will die on the you know what is it called, death roll, heart roll, whatever it is, it increases every time that you increase the amount of troubles that you have. And so that is definitely true. But at the same time, I don't want to die. Uh, Again, not well. I hope I don't die anytime soon, but myself, but my player character, like, I want to play the game. I don't want to die. I want to have a campaign. I want to meet a new crew. I want to set up a heist and get well known for that heist and beat my creditors and set up a little empire on my own. And I just wonder why it's like, well, obviously you're not going to be able to play a big campaign in a solo game. So instead, you'll just narrate your downfall. And that really, for me, that really bums me out. Like, I don't feel very motivated to play that, because part of a game is this fantasy of agency and excitement and doing a lot of things that I can't do in my normal life. Obviously, I don't have starships around, but if I know I'm going to die, and that is part of the mechanic of the game, it kind of feels like watching prequel to the Titanic or something like that. And from what I just said, though, I had a realization about this game that I want to share it. And I really, really want to reemphasize. This is a very well-made solo game, and I like it. It's just that I had that thought while I was playing of like, darn, another thing where I have to like die. Now, there is a piece of this that I'm not going to be able to show on the video, unfortunately, and it's a really cool piece of both Orbital Blues and this. I can't show it because of copyright, and that's the fact that during this whole thing, you're putting together your playlist of actual songs, and so that at the end, you also have like a swan song, and I think that that's a really clever meta or large scale way of meta journaling, I guess you could say, because the chances that I'll ever read back a game journal is very low, but the chances that I might read a playlist that my character went through and then have those songs attached to different moments, but I can't do that on YouTube unless my playlist was all made out of songs called like chiptune overture free.mp3.cc0 underscore please attribute me in the comments. Okay, so this is again the phases of this have you going through these different sort of two past, one present, and then one end or downfall. And in fact, if you just breeze through it, it doesn't appear this way, but there are actually two like oracles. So you have hearts here, and then again later in the book, there's hearts again, and that is for phase 2. And then in phase 3, you are using the discarded decks that you created. In phase 4, you're using the deck that you put together. When I first played, I did what I usually do with journaling games, which is, I don't like journaling that much. I also have really terrible carpal tunnel and surgery, and so writing and typing is a limited economy for me. And so I do record often. I'm happy to do that. I do that in solo sessions regardless, just so I know where to leave off. But I, when I'm just kind of like doing it to explore a game, I'll just narrate. And as I was doing this, I was going through the game and I was just really burning through it. Um, because each phase again ends when you have 4 troubles, or when you have you've gone through the whole deck. Okay, and remember, when you have a failure, that doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically get a blues. A hard moment has to happen. And so the first time I played through, I was like, what in the hell am I supposed to do here? Like, uh, a hard moment. I'm just getting these prompts, and so I got to determine. There's not any of them that say, like, as far as I know, I didn't look at all of them, but there's not any that say like, oh, this was really hard. Take a blues. And so I just did the checks, and if I failed them and they seemed especially bad, I would just sort of add a blues token. As I'm playing through phase 2, I have this realization where I'm like, wait a minute. Why does it have the instructions in here for stat checks, observation checks, heal checks, attack checks, when all I'm doing is like rolling against these cards? And that's when I realized, sure, it's journaling, but they want me to do more than just journal. They want me to play out this scene, like sort of play it through and see how it turns out. And in that scene, so let's take an example. Your crew fractured after a job gone bad. I do the check up front. It's a savvy check. And I failed. Who left the crew and never looked back? Well, let's start at the top, right? And I would start crafting a scene. I'd be like, so we had just pulled a job right by Alpha Centauri. There was a wormhole exit nearby. We were able to make it back home in time for dinner. And so what? I took a nap. Because, looking at my troubles, I have, like, I'm lazy. Maybe that's my trouble. I don't know if that's one of them. And so that helps to catalyze that. And because of this, maybe one of my crewmates, and I did make like some NPC crews for myself, Z, Hollis, and Mara. Because of this, Z was like, so basically you fell asleep and I don't get home in time to see my daughter. And so Z left, and we're trying to pull it together because Z was in charge of all the systems and was like a cipher, able to unlock things. I have to talk through that scene, and, I have to create some sort of rising tension, something like that. And once I figured that out, I was able to start accumulating blues, and then I was able to understand that I have the discards, the cards I keep, and this started feeling more like the game. I was able to have combat scenarios, etc. And by the way, in their bestiary, they have a character who's called a goon. And I think every game should have a goon because their stats are just lower than yours. I love that. It's like, what are their stats? Lower than yours. Whatever it is, it's lower than yours. And, you encounter 3 of them. It might not be completely easy, but... So that's at the point where I was like, okay, I dig this. I think I need a little bit more. And then having put the hands together and looking, it's kind of fun, like pruning and preening the deck and getting rid of things until, draw 9. Okay, great. Discarded 2, and I have now a pair, and that felt good. And then trying to put things together from the Troubles deck, I thought that was a good generator for phase 3, right? That's what's come to roost. And you have this Troubles deck, and there's different like challenges for each of them. and the challenges are really nice to set up like an arc. So like 3 successful savvy checks. So somehow I need to come up with a scenario that in order to succeed, I need 3 successful savvy checks. Okay. And so you go through that, and finally you're at phase 4. You get to look at what happened, based on basically the fallout. All right. And I just want to say for phase 3, your gambits do change, because it says you use your troubles decks made from the discarded cards from your failed checks in phases 1 and 2. These are the cards that life dealt to your enemies, which is pretty cool. The hands made from these cards represent the toughest luck and the worst of the trouble faced in the past. It is recommended that you use the characters that emerged in your memories from 1 and 2 to inform this details. Lay out all the cards in your troubles deck face up. Choose the 5 cards that make the best possible hand and set aside as a trouble hand. Repeat this as many times as possible to create complete poker hands. Lay these trouble hands out in front you so they are all visible. Return any excess cards to the main deck. Okay. So yeah, I had 2 trouble hands. And so each of these represents a challenge to your past. You can spend your blues tokens. So in this way, you can spend your blues tokens to do exertion. In this way, it sort of, I guess, mirrors the trouble brewing mechanic, where it's sort of like, all right, it's go time. We got to do it. Now, I will say the heart mechanic, it gives advice here that says, in Orbital Blues, heart is your ability to get hit and keep going. It's your physical health and well-being and the stat that keeps you off the floor. It's situational, one that is hit and healed across scenes, sessions, and arcs. The Wanderer references a longer period of time than a standard Orbital Blues session. Think of heart as one's limit for contemplating old scars. Memories of pain can cause a different pain in their remembrance. And similar to traditional games of Orbital Blues, you can use heart to exert yourself. If at any point you reach 0 heart, you must proceed to phase 3 immediately, as you can no longer bear the pain. So this was a little confusing to me, because now I was back at like, oh, was I not supposed to be like playing these scenes out with my heart as my HP because I'm getting in combat or whatever? I'm supposed to use the heart as like the pain of memory. And really it's fine. Like, the point of this exercise, this solo game, is not tight resource management. It's more about the process and the procedure, and guaranteed there's some very obvious way to interpret that I missed. But either way, your exertions during phase 3 can utilize your blues tokens, and so that means you can re-roll a lot of dice and have a good shot. Even though the challenges are significant, you have a good shot, and say you have 3 of them. You saw, like, they're not super easy challenges, and so you might succeed at a few, fail at a few, and then in phase 4, you see what ultimately happened. Now, there is something in here where it's like, maybe this isn't your last song. Maybe you keep going, and I appreciate that. My funerary critiques of solo funeral games notwithstanding. So when I was done, I said, you know what? I thought that the card mechanic and the hand mechanic was not what I thought it was going to be. And to be honest, it wasn't what I hoped it would be. But it was still cool. I mean, this is still an excellent solo gaming innovation. And I thought that maybe some of the phases went on a little too long, but that's on me. I think that maybe that's just a question of, did I need to be as comprehensive for each different memory that came up? I don't know, but I thought to myself, this is a cool like flow here if I enjoyed this kind of journaling more. But what is missing is, if I'm not journaling, I'm doing a lot of lifting. I'm doing like a lot of lifting, because all I've got is my trouble, what I know about my character, and whatever this prompt is, it's hard, even if you're journaling, just like free writing, to keep free writing. And so about halfway through, that's when I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a small adjustment here. And of course, in my fashion, this small adjustment was that I created a complete solo oracle set using the cards and words that either are from Orbital Blues, the adventures, or in some way related. And then I started going a little. I should have stopped. But anyways, I don't know what their gaming license is. So this is just for my personal use. If you're from Soul Muppet and you are uh, uh, interested to see this or okay with me putting this up on drive through, it's just like 4 pages. But I'll just say for now, it's just for my personal use. But the idea here is that these can be inputs that either you can use the cards that you're already have, or you can have a separate deck to just draw up oracle things. So for instance, diamonds, material and economic; hearts, interpersonal, emotional; clubs, conflict; spades, progress, events, and change. And then so then I was like, well, I should also do some for some, just some modifiers and stuff. And so I did that. And all right. So then also I was like, it would also be cool to just have maybe extend that so that you're not. So anyways, I did another 52 cards. And I'm not, I need to stop, I need to stop. But anyway, so this is essentially, oh, I saw a repeat there. This essentially all leads up to the natural progression for me in my mind. And this is a great thing about innovating in a game, is like every time you push the form a little bit, even if you don't like shoot the moon, you are you're weakening the membrane that protects the now from the new. And I'm not saying that I shot the moon here, but this is what was allowed me to then create this meta narrative mapping. And what this does is you can look at your hand at all times. And based on your hand, if you have a red majority, high card, you know that whether you succeeded or failed, if you have 2 pair, you're doing a choice between loyalties. 2 simultaneous plot lines emerge. If you have 1 pair in front of you, a clue is uncovered, a place from the past reemerges. Now, what was interesting about creating this was, say that you have a D100 and you're like, okay, I'm going to make 100 like a really, really powerful thing because it's a 1 in 100 chance. Okay, what do you do about a royal flush? Because a royal flush, I mean, what are the odds of a royal flush? I'm going to look that up. All right, this is wild and at some point involves scientific notation, but say you are doing 5-card draw and you get a game with 5 no wild cards. And in fact, that does slightly change it because there are 2 wild cards, but let's just say straight up. There are 4 royal flushes, 1 pursuit in the deck. And so this means that there are 2,598,000 possible hands. And so the probability would be, and if you're a math whiz, check my math here. Your probability I see is 4 in 2,598,960, or 1.539 to 10 times 10 to the negative 6th. Now I think I'm not calculating that correctly for like Texas Hold'em. I'm sure that the odds are different with like a river and a flop but yeah, I mean, suffice to say, it's big. It's big. The other one I came to was like around 1 in 659,000, I think. But I'm pretty bad at math, but I'm very wily, so I'll go for it. So just let me know how far off I am. But can we both agree that it's very rare? It's very rare to have a royal flush. Now, again, there are 2 jokers that go in the deck, and those can just get picked up and be anything, but you have to declare them right away. So who knows what that does to the odds. And then the other thing is, like, you have a constant flow of discards. But at the very least, it has to be one in 1,000. And so the events that I did, I think, are fitting for that. Reality bends. A legendary place, god, or principle reveals itself in full. I mean, I was like, that has to be the level of what a royal flush is. Because if that actually comes up, if you actually get a royal flush, you should be sufficiently rewarded with like a face melting narrative change. I was unsure about this, and I actually wanted to appeal to any of you that have some ideas for this to help me close the loop on it, just out of curiosity. So at first I was like, all right, maybe you have a second deck where players draw 1 card per scene, and at 5 cards they start checking for hands. And then once 5 cards are met, the lowest ranked card is... So there's 2 ways you could do it. You can constantly be playing poker like this, and you can be discarding for new cards and deciding whether you want to keep the new draw or discard it, or so that you don't have to be like playing poker in 2 hands, you could just make a conveyor belt with this deck, and like the 9 leaves, these move over, and now your hand is this. And then the next one, this leaves, these move over, draw a new card. And that way it's like, it's a randomized oracle. It's not necessarily an oracle of skill. It's just an oracle of happenstance. All right. And then I tried to do it so that like red majority, this would be black majority. This is a situational change, environmental emphasis, underlying tone. Man, I was very tired whenever I start using the word emphasis, you know that I'm tired. Underlying tone or symbolism. And then red majority was like narrative momentum, relationships, plot level movement. So I don't know if that'll work, but I do think just like an oracle like this is a big boon. And I'll tell you what, you don't really need it. If Soul Muppet lets me sell it, 98 cents I'll sell it for. But really, if you really want to know when to fold them, you got to get an oracle shoe like me. This is when you know you have a sickness in solo gaming, because you just put all your oracle cards in there and just pull them out. And then also you can switch. I have several different kinds of them in there, and it holds 6 decks. And yeah, I'm pretty popular. I was pretty cool. A lot of friends, and a lot of people wanted to go to prom with me. So anyways, let me know what you think. Have you played The Wanderer? Are you compelled to play it after this? The PDF is very reasonably priced. I printed it out and forgot that I ordered this, and it was really hard to print it out because I'm so terrible at doing double-sided booklet printing. Anyways, this isn't about me. How have you been? Yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments. Some excellent videos coming your way soon. We are doing a Substratum Protocol playthrough. And also today I got The Bleakness, which is from Exalted Funeral, about 50 pages and 60 pages, and very interesting system. It's like you follow a road. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for coming. Boy, are my arms tired. I always do this. Where is the outro button? I'm so sorry. I can't. I'm so sorry. I couldn't find the outro button. This is it. This is the end of the video. I'm so sorry.